Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we got another shop talk video, and today's topic is going to be working on aluminum suspensions and using hammers on them to get components off. Now before we go ahead and begin, guys, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below. Definitely smash that like button because it helps the channel out. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started on today's video. So like the video intro said, guys, if you guys are working on aluminum suspensions and you guys are wanting to use a hammer, I know there's a lot of people out there that may not know this, or they do know and they just, don't really consider it, to be honest with you. But you should be using a special type of hammer to work on aluminum pieces. Now, I have worked on aluminum suspensions for quite a while now. I work on a lot of Mercedes, Audi, Volkswagen. They typically have suspension components like lower control arms that are made out of aluminum, and typically I replace them. Now, one thing that you want to avoid doing if you can is don't take a steel hammer like this and start using it and hitting knuckles or control arms if you're planning on removing them. Now, the only way I would ever use this style hammer on a component that's aluminum is, one, I would only hit the item that I'm removing. So let's say I'm doing a lower control arm on an Audi. I will only use something like this if I will even use it, which I typically won't. I'll only hit the part that I'm going to be replacing, because typically if you damage the part or you indent the part that you're removing, not a big deal. It's going to the scrap pile either way. So I try to avoid using these on aluminum almost at every single cost, guys. Sometimes they are necessary because even the hammers that I'm going to show you that you should be using sometimes can be a little bit too soft for, let's say, the type of stiction that the ball joint might have gotten over the years. But these are last resort, and again, I try to avoid them if I can because they can do damage. Even if you're only going to hit the part that you're replacing and you don't care if the part that you're replacing gets damaged, we are human. You could swing and miss, potentially hit something else and cause some damage, or disfigure it by making it all smashed up, and that would be a problem, especially if the customer's paying you to work on their car. You definitely don't want to damage it or do anything. So the hammers that you should be using on suspensions, especially ones that are aluminum, are brass hammers, guys. If you could, now here's the thing, most people will use these on every sort of suspension. Some will only use them on aluminum. If I have a steel suspension or metal, I typically use the regular hammers. I still use these from time to time depending on what I'm doing. But the brass hammer and aluminum is really good because brass hammers are made to, one, hit, but also absorb and be soft. Now, to show you guys a good idea of this, if you look at the tip of this thing, it's pretty smashed in. It's not level, it's not straight, because every time I've hit something with this, the hammer takes a little bit of the grunt too. It's not just full-fledged power to the part. And that can make it really good for not damaging components. But sometimes, like I mentioned, it can be a little bit too soft to fully get something out, especially if it's seized on there. That's why there's that 1% chance that you may have to use a steel, but these are always the go-to for aluminum, guys. It's always better to be safe. Now, a lot of you may say, hey Mike, you're wrong, you shouldn't use any hammer. They make specialty tools. This is true. They do make a lot of specialty tools, and as a matter of fact, guys, I have a kit that's a front-end service kit for aluminum cars, and they do have a lot of tools like this. And even though I have these, here's the drawback with these tools. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. That's what I've come to find out throughout the years. But the biggest drawback for me is, guys, if let's say you're removing a lower control arm and you gotta pop the ball joint out, that's what this tool will typically be used for. You press it on there, it kind of locks in, you turn this nut, and you basically put pressure on it, and hopefully it should pop out. Now, these don't always work 100% of the time. And the scariest thing for me on these guys is, imagine I have the setup. And a lot of people have a tendency to use these wrong. They'll take their impact, put it on the appropriate socket, and go brrr and blast it. It's not the way you use them. You're supposed to use hand ratchets, manual tools, not power tools. But whether you use it with a power tool or the manual way, this is a piece of steel that is designed to be put under pressure, and there's not a whole lot of metal. Even though it's pretty sturdy, it can still break. And you gotta be fairly close. Like if I'm using this, I gotta be right here, moving the ratchet. If this thing were to explode on me or somehow shrapnelize, it can pretty much hurt you. And even if these don't shrapnelize and you use them and it winds up popping that control arm out, these things violently go everywhere sometimes. So these are not a surefire thing, guys. These can hurt you sometimes. That's why I'm not a big fan of them. The reason why I mentioned this because what happened to me using this is I had it set up. I was pressing the ball joint out of it because the way this works is it goes on the stud and just basically push it down. And even though it released, this tool came flying at me and it wound up hitting me in the chest. Now, what if that was my face? I'd be, pretty banged up. And the downside is you got to be close to using it. You can't have the tool here and, be out to the side and shaking your hand in fear. You got to kind of, be right in front of it. And 99% of the time, the tool wants to go whichever way you're tightening it. Because the way this works, it'll break free when you're turning it. So imagine you turn it, it goes pop, and you're pulling towards you. It's going to wind up coming towards you. That's a fact. I wish I could say that you should only use these, but the fact of the matter is, I don't know about you guys, but I care about my safety. I want to be able to make it to work and go home at the end of the day because, I want to see my family and, live my life. I don't want to be hurt or severely injured or even killed using a tool that was designed to help me and it winds up backfiring. Now, a hammer, the reason why I like these, even if I swing this and I miss, let's say I hit my kneecap, well, it can do damage, but it's not gonna kill me because this has so much weight to it. So even if you swing it and it breaks, typically it'll fly wherever it is. Unless you do something stupid like swing it towards your forehead and then hit it in, obviously, you gotta know how to use your tools, guys. But a hammer can be a lot safer. Now, a lot of you may make the point that, well, if you strike aluminum with it, the aluminum can implode or explode. I've seen that happen a few times. But again, it's very limited. It's not a common thing. It's pretty rare. I've used brass hammers on aluminum parts for years. This is, I want to say, the third hammer in the past 10 years that I've had that's brass because, they wear down, and I've never had an issue using a hammer, guys. So this is my whole point on this video is to, kind of give you guys an idea of how to properly use proper tools on appropriate suspensions or materials because it'll make a difference. Customers pay me money to work on their car in confidence, and I'm not going to go around damaging their vehicles, but I also want to be safe. So you got to find a happy medium. There's people that are going to say no matter what, you got to use the proper tool. Well, those people don't do it every day. If you do this every day, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you do it every day and you want to be safe and not damaging the vehicle and not hurting yourself, brass hammers are the way to go. And for people that simply, just want to take the risk, they use steel. It is what it is. But at my shop, guys, the way I break it down is if I have aluminum parts, I'm using brass hammers. Everything's going to be brass. On the chance that I can't do it with a brass hammer, I will employ my steel hammer, but I try to strictly hit the part that I'm replacing. So if I were to damage anything, it's whatever I'm replacing at the end of the day. And that's just how I feel about it. When it comes down to metallic suspensions or steel suspensions, you can use brass, you can use the steel hammers. What I find is that the steel is a little bit better because it can actually resonate the material, where brass will kind of absorb the resonation. Steel will resonate it and get the job done a lot quicker. But again, you shouldn't be using it on aluminum unless you absolutely have to, last resort. And sometimes those situations do occur. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, just to give you guys an idea of how this all works. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I would love to hear your guys' comments on this, especially you guys that do this for a living, working on European vehicles, or just general mechanics and all. So with that said, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and subscribe because it definitely helps the channel grow. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.